and welcome to my build guide. Today's build is a weapon buff build based around the grace of Yuanshi Tianzun the Pure One. This is a pretty interesting build in that I utilized 3 different weapon buffs, a fire, lightning and stone weapon buff, in combination with the elemental plague spell. And not only this, they also have approximately 20% increased weapon damage on a buffed weapon. With this build you can output a ridiculous amount of melee damage, and you could even call this a cheese build against most enemies due to the fact that you will proc the elemental statuses on an enemy so fast and so easily that you can keep them in a almost constant stun lock loop. When it comes to equipment, you want 5 pieces with the grace of Yuanshi Tianzun the Pure One, you want 1 equipment piece with the grace of Shaha the White Emperor, you want 1 equipment piece with set bonus current mitigation, 1 of your accessories has to be the silver inlay Liu Bei dice, and then an additional piece of the strategist of genius. And as an additional note, I really recommend that you use a staff type of weapon as your main weapon, because they are overall the best weapon to inflict elemental debuffs to enemies. And I'm going with this specific one because it scales A+ in wood and A- in earth, which are 2 of the main stats that this build uses. Special effect of set bonus work really well with this build, and they all benefit this build greatly. Now first you have increased spirit gain from normal attacks, which is always a real nice thing to have. You have a 2.4% damage mitigation, which is just a nice little bonus, nothing special. Then you have positive effect duration plus 4.1%, which is really nice, and in itself it's nothing special, but when you stack this on set bonuses and your gear, it really does add up. Then maybe the main special effect of the set bonus is increased elemental weapon damage plus 8.6%. Now this means that every time you have a weapon buff active, your weapon does 8.6% more damage, and this increase is to your physical portion of the damage, not just the buff itself. So if you have a weapon that does 100 damage without a buff, when you put a weapon buff on it, it does 108 damage, or maybe 109 if it's rounded up, I'm not sure, but still. So it affects the physical portion of your weapon, which is why it is such a powerful buff to have. So you can think of it as a flat out 8.6% buff to your melee damage. And then the 6-piece bonus is called the Principle of Yuanshi, and this is a pretty unique one. It gives you a stack every time you use a martial art. Now this stat is indicated by a small icon below your health and spirit bar, and I'll show a picture on the screen how it looks like. And you will gain up to 3 stacks in total. You cannot have more than 3 stacks at once. And every time you use a wizard spell while you have a stack active, it will consume 1 of these stacks, and in exchange for 1 of these stacks, the spell you used will only consume 80% of the total spirit that it will normally cost. This means that you can play quite aggressive and keep on applying weapon buffs all of the time with no real issue of running out of spirit at all. The other set bonuses just give increased status effect accumulation, even more status effect accumulation, and I decided to go with the 2-piece bonus for this set because you get a power drop to the enemy when landing a fatal strike and you will be doing quite a lot of spirit damage with this build, so you will be getting these power drops constantly, hence why I decided to go with 2 pieces of this bonus, since I had 1 free slot left after everything else. For special effects, I have HP restoration upon deflecting a critical blow, and this is just because I feel like this is a really good source of regen, especially in drawn out boss fights, and it helps you keep on the offensive momentum in fights when you don't have to heal that much due to the good regen. Then I have increased spell duration, which is really good to have on a build centered around using weapon buffs. And then, last but not least, spirit vulnerability to the enemy upon a successful martial arts hit. And this is just a really nice thing to have, since you'll be using martial arts very often on this build. You pretty much constantly do more spirit damage to enemies thanks to this debuff. I have the same special effects on both weapons, and then on my ranged weapon I just have lightning, stone and flame attack power together with increased enemy status effect accumulation. For my armor I have put positive effect duration on every single piece to extend my weapon buff and elemental plague timer duration. Then I have also put element imbued weapon damage on my pants and on my chest piece. Now unfortunately I cannot put it on my gloves or my helmet, because I'm pretty sure that heavy armor doesn't allow to put this at all, and my gloves have a unchangeable increased spirit attack damage. Then some other notable special effects are damage amplification upon fatal strike and damage amplification upon deflecting a critical blow. This is to just also have a damage amplification debuff constantly active on your boss. Well, not constantly, but pretty much most of the fight. And then additionally I just have a little bit of Divine Beast gouge gain and some stone attack power, lightning attack power and flame attack power. And on my accessories I've gone with one that has increased spell duration, and this one has also increased martial arts damage. And on the other one I have damage reduction upon deflection and HP restoration from melee attack damage. Now unfortunately you cannot change the special effects on your accessories, so as long as you are using the silver inlay Liu Bei dice, just go with whatever you prefer using on these ones. When it comes to level, I have 3 main offensive virtues, and then I put 9 into metal, which is purely for the elemental plague self buff, which is really good on this build. Now I'm a bit in favor of wood, which is why it's a bit higher, and this is because it gives increased spell duration. Fire and earth also gives really good secondary effects, which are increased spirit gain from attacking, so normal attacks, decreased martial arts spirit consumption rate, and then also increased spirit gain rates from deflections. And then also it increases your max equipment weight load, so I can stay in light roll quite easily, which requires you to be at 30% or below. For spells, I just have a weapon buff out of the respective virtue I have leveled, so fire, wood and earth. And then elemental plague, which I already mentioned earlier, which is really good, and it like at least doubles the status effect accumulation to enemies. Now, just an additional note of what these specific element debuffs does. Fire puts a damage over time effect on the enemy. Lightning causes the enemy to gradually lose spirit, so it's like a damage over time but to their spirit bar. And then stone or heaviness is what the debuff itself is called, makes the enemies not only take increased spirit damage, but they also gain less spirit from deflections and normal attacks, so you will be obliterating the spirit with these 3. Now last is the Divine Beast, and for this one I use
辟邪
and this is purely for the fact that it gives even more elemental imbued weapons damage, and then also increased positive effect duration. And the other two special effects are kinda useless, but you really wanna stack up this elemental imbued weapon damage, which is why I use it. Alright, so that's pretty much all that comes to this build. And now all that is left is the showcases against bosses for those of you who are interested. And I made sure to include some bosses that are resistant to at least one of the 3 elements I use, just to showcase the sheer power that Elemental Plague and a staff has when it comes to inflicting status elements with your melee weapon. Now I really hope you enjoyed this video so far, and thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in my next video. Thank you, and bye.
Scream until I last breath, every heartbeat. You know I'll come running. You go to war, then I'm going with you. Pick up my sword, yeah, there's nothing I won't do. There's nothing